Yo, what up? How you guys doing out there today? This is your boy Roto Beast. I'm here with my boy Jeremy, and we also have a couple guests on our show today. We got Matt and we got Ryan from the DFS 5-pack, and we're gonna kind of break down some DraftKings picks. We always do all of our picks on FanDuel, so these guys are DraftKings expert, and we want to get you guys, some quality picks on both sites every single week. So we brought them in to help us out. One thing I quickly want to mention before we get going is, hey, we got our NBA optimizer up. It just went live. You can start playing tonight, preseason if you want. Go take advantage of our NBA pre-order special for the season. $200 get you our cash line every single day, plus full access to the optimizer. So go check out the site at www.dfscheatsheet.com. And hey, how you guys doing out there today?
I'm doing awesome, man. How about you?
I'm doing good. Very excited. We just got the great news we've been waiting for several days now. So yeah, really looking forward to this NBA season. NFL started very well for us as well. So hey, right now we're in money season for sure.
All right. Well, I will pull this up then, and we can start talking about football since we know people like it. All right, guys. We can slide through a lot of this since it's covering a lot of stuff from us. So this week, I focus a lot on cash games within the NFL game. Baseball, I love GPPs, but when it comes to NFL, I'll play GPPs, but I really just love cash games because I think they're borderline stealing, in my opinion. It's just really the easiest money, I think, in DFS is NFL cash games. So I'm focusing in on Big Ben Roethlisberger this week. The Atlanta defense is just flat out in shambles, missing guys everywhere, missing both starting safeties. For me, it is absolutely imperative and worth every dollar to spend the extra money on Big Ben this week. No joke. I think he could be worth 10 plus, even bordering on 20 extra points over the vast majority of quarterbacks this week. Just go look at the last 3 weeks of what Andy Dalton, Drew Brees, and Cam have done against this Atlanta defense. They've absolutely gone ham. They've gone beast mode on them. This is what happens when you don't have your safeties in there and you don't have the guys who can control the field. I mean, quarterbacks have been going off on them. They've had no resistance or ability to stop it. Now you get the Steelers in a must-win game at home. We all know that the Steelers' offense is 10 times more prolific at home. The kicker here is the Steelers' defense sucks as well, and Atlanta can push them. This game has got the largest point projection of the week by several points. This is one of the best games of the year from a DFS perspective. Ben is a very, very safe play in my eyes. The question is, who's going to score, Brown or Juju? Is it going to go to a tight end? That I can't answer you, but I can tell you I know who's going to throw it, and it's going to be Big Ben.
Yeah, no, so I'll just quickly jump in. I mean, he's the dub play, just like, we were talking about with Brown and Juju Smith. I mean, he's the dub play. I definitely love Roethlisberger. I really don't got too much to say about it. Obvious play. Definitely top 3 quarterback on the slate. Tons of weapons. Play a lot for sure.
Thank you for saying that. I actually feel like one of my roles within this industry is to just remind people that duh plays are duh plays for a reason and not to try to overthink things. Sometimes it's just as simplistic as looking at a guy like Big Ben in a crush spot against a defense that's in shambles right now with all these injuries and not try to think of ways to be different in cash games. Now, if you want to start a different quarterback in GPPs, man, I understand that one. But this is what, like you just said, it's a duh play. It's such an easy way to start in a game that is one of the top games of the year from a DFS perspective.
That was really funny for me to hear a Packers guy say a duh play because it kind of sounded like, duh Bears.
Yeah.
I had to hold that back for just a second. I was like, man, did he just say duh play or is it like a duh play? Look, I don't think we have to go too far in depth on picks in this game. They are absolutely just no-brainers. They're simple. There's going to be a ton of passing yards in this game. You can't go wrong with Big Ben. One thing that I like in Big Ben's favor is, it's known that there's no Le'Veon Bell here. Connor's the guy who catches the ball out of the backfield. You don't have to worry about them, trying to, with such a bad defense, trying to grind the game down and maybe limit Atlanta's possessions. They're going to go out and throw it. And Ben Roethlisberger, that's all you have to say. Ben Roethlisberger in a game where there's a very terrible defense.
I think Connor has less than 20 yards rushing in 2 of the last 3 games. So forget what you saw week 1. This offense runs through Big Ben.
That's right.
Matt, I don't think you probably have anything to add. I think you're just going to probably agree with them because then we'll get into your GPP quarterback.
Yeah, I'm only saying something here right now so everyone out there can hear my voice.
All right, let it rip.
All right, so there's no argument that Big Ben is the guy you kind of want to lock in cash games. I mean, to me, he's the top, play on the slate in that format because it's so obvious and the upside's real and the floor seems so high. That being said, a guy that I like from a GPP side is going to be Blake Bortles. And I'm going to go straight to the bottom point first because even though it's not our channel, I know, Ryan, you can kind of speak to this. I hate Bortles. I am not a Bortles guy. I think, going into this year, I was a big critic of his. I don't think he's all that good. But slowly and surely, he's gotten better. So, Ryan, you want to speak to that for a second?
Yeah, Matt is a hater of Blake Bortles. So the fact that he is really on him this week should tell you a little bit of something because this is a guy that you've gone out of your way to trash. Even last year when I was trying to tell you that Jacksonville was a good team, you weren't buying it. You kept you coming down to the fact that you thought this guy was flat garbage. That should tell you something. If somebody who is a Bortles hater is really looking at him this week, and again, Big Ben is the cleared #1 play, but what if the game doesn't work out that way? There are reasons to like Blake Bortles at a substantially lower price tag.
Yeah. The other thing that I go to, and we kind of touched on it in the last video with Yeldon, Bortles' numbers are really, really good without Fournette in there. They change their offense. They allow him to do more. He averages close to 300 yards, almost 2 TDs a game, between 20 and 25 fantasy points, depending on the format you play. Really solid production. I mean, the Chiefs defense can't stop anyone right now. My biggest worry here is, Ryan, you alluded to it in the last video, that Jacksonville gives them a steady dose of the run. But TJ Yeldon isn't that guy for me, so I don't think they can do that. Well, I think Yeldon gets a lot of touches here. I think half of those come in the pass game. I don't think they feed him all that much because he's not that type of back. They don't want to do that. So I think Bortles is given every opportunity here to keep pace with a prolific offense.
And you kind of missed your first point, which was the first thing you brought up. Kansas City is allowing opponents to score on almost 50% of drives, so they're not a stout defense. The only thing Kansas City does well defensively is get teams off of the field on third down. They're statistically good at that. We don't even know if that's going to keep up. They don't do much well defensively. And because the Chiefs are so prolific offensively, they're a team that can score on Jacksonville most likely, which would just put the Jacksonville in a situation where they're likely needing to throw. And, we talked up TJ Yeldon over on our channel, and you talked about Yeldon could get 5-6 catches. Keelan Cole can get involved. D.D. Westbrook. It's very likely that they need to throw the ball on Jacksonville this week.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much to say on Bortles. One thing I will say, though, is currently in my rough draft for DraftKings, I have Blake Bortles as my cash game quarterback. The guy's just too cheap and too good of an opportunity. Going against Kansas City's defense, they're horrible. So it's funny. It made me smile right now when I seen you talk about him because I do have him in my lineup as well. I think he's an awesome play this week. Very, very good price tag for sure.
And you just mentioned one of the main points that I didn't even bring up. I forgot. He's cheap as hell on DraftKings. He's $5,500. So, Ryan, I agree with you that spending up a QB, especially in cash games, is the way to go. And if you want to use Big Ben and GBPs, go for it because the floor and ceiling is so high. But Bortles is $1,500 cheaper than him and $1,000 cheaper than other QBs who I think he's just as good as. So the value play is real here.
Yep. All right, let's move along. All right, guys. So we've talked about this. We just got done doing the video on our channel, and we went through the running back situation this week. And running back is weaker than it has been on most weeks. It's just not the strongest week of running back. So you're going to have to take a look at some guys. Because there is a desire to spend up on quarterback for some people, because there is a desire to spend up on wide receiver, finding a cheaper running back you can take a look at is not a bad idea. So for those of you who don't know, I know everybody on our channel knows it because I talk about it all the time, but for you guys maybe catching us for the first time, I'm a Green Bay Packers fan. I live in the city of Green Bay. I grew up here. I left for 10 years, but I'm back now. I feel like I have a pretty good idea of what the Green Bay Packers want to do. Right now, Geronimo Allison left in the third quarter last week with a concussion. Randall Cobb is dealing with a hamstring issue. Devontae Adams has been listed as questionable. This game in Detroit this week is the perfect time to unleash one of the game's best pure runners of the football, and that is Aaron Jones. At only $4,300, he is dirt cheap. This allows you to go get some of those high-priced wide receivers that you so desire. He is really good. Eye test. Pro Football Focus rating, elusivity ranking. Last year, he was the only The only guy that averaged a 15-yard carry per touch more often than him was Alvin Kamara, and I think we know how good he is. Another point to like about Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers loves him. Has been yelling into Coach McCarthy's ear, get him in the game, get him the ball. We need to be focusing on this guy. He is really good. And oh yeah, Detroit is the opposite of being good against the run. They allow the most yards per game, and they allow the third worst yards per carry. They are not good against the run. It's why we all loved Ezekiel Elliott last week, and he went off on him. You know, you don't expect the same thing from Aaron Jones, but you're also getting him at half the price that Zeke was last week. This is a good week where the wide receivers can't practice to finally wisen up and go attack Detroit with the running game on the road. The only downfall I have with Aaron Jones is that they still don't trust him in the passing game, and that's where Jamal Williams tends to get into the game. And in a situation that maybe Detroit gets up early, that would be the potential downfall of an Aaron Jones.
I like the pick. I like the play. The key point that you hit on was we liked Zeke. You're getting a guy who's at half the price, right? And that's the key, because you can't expect him to have the volume in this game that Ezekiel Elliott got, or a real number one. And I know he's their number one running back, but I'm talking about a number one between the tackles running back who's a run-first offense like Dallas was last week. You're getting him at a much more reduced price, so that kind of the first thing that pops in your head when you're like, well, is he going to get the touches? Well, who cares? He's a great flex play because of the fact that he has all the upside you mentioned. He's at a reduced price, and he has, for price, his opportunity is probably the same dollar for dollar.
Yeah, we talked about this game a lot, and now Devontae Adams is on the injury report, so the wide receivers keep falling for them. So, I mean, the more they got to deal with there, the more they should just give the ball to Jones. We've talked about this game a lot, Ryan, and I'm about to go to the other side of this game. And, you know, as you know, I really like Detroit in this spot, and I think that it's a really close game, and I do think that the more that the week has gone on, we kind of see the unleashing of Aaron Jones.
It all adds up to make so much sense. Now, do we trust Coach? And I put Coach in quotation marks because I am not a Coach McCarthy fan. I think he has been riding the coattails of Aaron Rodgers for the better part of a little over a decade now, and he's just really not that good at his job. The smart thing here would be to go in and let Aaron Jones run the ball 15, maybe even 20 times. His carries have gone up each of the last 2 weeks. He's averaging like 6 yards per carry because, again, I think Pro Football Focus is ranking him as the number 2 running back in the league right now, and that might be a bit of a stretch. You know, it is a very small sample size, but we saw what happened when they gave him the ball last year. He's really good, and this defense is really bad against the run.
Definitely.
Yeah, I mean, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I want to quickly add in is everything that you're saying makes absolute sense. And then, I mean, I don't pay attention to DraftKings, but I'm looking at the guy's price right now, $4,300. I mean, he's almost free. And if they're really going to give him close to 20 carries this week against Detroit, I mean, it's a no-brainer for sure.
All right. Next up, Matt, you wanted to take a look at the other side of the ball and talk about another Jones. And this guy's got a different first name and on a different team, but why don't you let it rip?
Yeah, I love Marvin Jones this week. I mean, he's emerging as like maybe my favorite play on the entire slate. He's getting absolutely no love. Not that I expected him to, but we talked about this last week a little bit, Ryan. Stafford has just missed him on a couple of deep balls. We talked about this with Robert Woods 2 weeks ago. Woods ended up blowing up the next week, but that doesn't always happen. Just because you've missed on a few doesn't mean you're automatically going to connect the next week. It will happen eventually, and I like Jones a lot this week, kind of the week after the fact. One thing that I need to mention kind of off the bat, why I like him, is how he has dominated Green Bay recently. Monster year against them last year, you know, compiled over 200 yards and 3 tutties last year. He had the monster game in Green Bay last year and then monster game in Green Bay 2 years ago. The line on this game is anywhere from like a pick 'em to Green Bay -1. Vegas thinks this game will be close. I think this game will be close. I think that Green Bay's D played well last week against a weak Buffalo team, but they're really not that good. And Detroit, I don't want to say exposes them here, but moves the ball. And I like Jones to have a real nice day.
I think Green Bay's defense is emerging with the young quarterbacks, but let's not kid ourselves. Matthew Stafford and this trio of wide receivers, this ain't Buffalo, guys. Buffalo is what we call low-hanging fruit with a young quarterback who's been sacked more than anybody in the NFL. Yeah, they put up a lot of points against Minnesota, but they also caused 2 fumbles that let them get, you know, a really, really short field. So Detroit just ain't the same thing. It's not. They are significantly better. They play a lot better at home. Marvin Jones is a guy who's given the Packers issues. And even though Kenny Galladay has emerged as probably the number 2 guy in the Detroit offense, Marvin Jones is still getting looks. And one of the reasons that, we were really big on Robert Woods that week is we had watched the football games. We had watched him just miss on multiple occasions. Detroit's been in a spot this year where we've been able to watch them play a lot of times. And there has been multiple times where Stafford has just missed Jones on what it could equate to a 12 DraftKings point type of play on a 60-yard touchdown. He's only got to hit one of those to hit value. The price keeps coming down. I like it in GPPs. He's not going to make my cash game lineup, but he will be in a GPP lineup of mine at least once.
Bro, why do they have so many people dirt cheap on DraftKings? Jesus, we need some of these prices on FanDuel.
Well, that's why DraftKings is better.
Maybe just on pricing. That's about it.
Look, I like Marvin Jones. The thing I like most about Marvin Jones this week is his matchup with at the cornerback position. Marvin Jones gets Kevin King. Kevin King grades out at a 48.76 according to Pro Football Focus. And in the last video we did in comparison, I'll use Jalen Ramsey, who's up in the 80s. As I think everybody would agree, Jalen Ramsey probably one of the top corners in the NFL. So he gets a very good, very juicy matchup. Look, from a target standpoint, if you're looking at just peripheral statistics, he's not going to jump off the board as a guy who's overwhelming and towards the top of the list in targets, but he is averaging close to 7 targets, right? 6, 9, 8 receptions. This guy has a really, really solid floor. I like him as a wide receiver number 3. I wish, like Steph said, the pricing on FanDuel was maybe a little closer to what DK has this guy. For me, though, on FanDuel, I can't play him. Just a guy like we talked about before. I can't load him in at $6,500 and as opposed to a guy like a Cooper Kupp. But DraftKings for a price, wow, right? There's so many guys who are cheap. I think this guy makes way too much sense on DK.
So 2 years ago, he was a hard recommend, and it was one of those days where the customers and we just ate and took home big money. Hard recommended him in the game at Lambeau Field. He goes for over 200 yards and a couple of touchdowns. Monster day. It was a big payday for us. That was a lot of fun. Is that going to happen again this weekend? No, probably not. But guess what? At a price tag of $4,700, I don't even need half of that in order for him to make sense. You know what I mean? Like he can do 100 yards and a touchdown, and that is a monster playoff of $4,700.
There's 3 guys on this slate for me that are like, maybe it's my own recency bias, but it's Marvin Jones Jr. going against Green Bay has had monster games. Amari Cooper has had monster games going against the Chargers, and Melvin Gordon has had monster games going against the Raiders. Marvin Jones is that 3rd guy for me. It's just for me on FanDuel, I love everything about him, and he's more of a, like I say, he's a matchup play for me because of what he's done historically against Green Bay. It's just very hard for me to put him in FanDuel lineups because of his price. But you're talking $4,700 on DK, $6,500 on FanDuel. Huge difference.
Yep, and that is one of the things that they give us is price differences, and that is awesome and a good thing worth noting because it is not the same thing. Like, I wouldn't be looking at Marvin Jones Jr. if he was, say, $5,800 on DraftKings because that would be like you're really kind of having to like stake your claim. And Green Bay is not the same team that it was when he went off. They have a brand new set of cornerbacks, so it is a little bit different. But there is a lot of upside on his price tag this week, which he's a kind of guy that could be, a millionaire maker type of that one-off where not a lot of people are going to use him. All right, next up. So this is another one of my favorite overall plays of the weekend, especially for when it comes to cap space on the DraftKings format. So first off, he's $3K on DraftKings. What this does right now is open up your flexibility. If you're in a situation where you're looking to roster multiple high-priced studs, you're going to have to spend down in some places. And while overall I am not an Austin Hooper fan, I will give him a shout-out for his long touchdown week 1 last year that helped me win a GPP. But outside of that, I'm not – Austin Hooper doesn't move the needle for me, but there's a lot of things to like about him this week. If you've been watching the Pittsburgh Steelers, they've come to the realization that their cornerbacks are weak, and it gives them a complete inability to bring pressure, and they get stuck playing this soft zone coverage. The announcers on Sunday Night Football did a great job of breaking that down for people. I know not a lot of other people watch football as analytically as like guys like us do, but that's the kind of thing that I try to pick up on when I watch games like this. And they just couldn't bring pressure. They couldn't blitz because they know that they're going to get burned on the backside. Do you think that all of a sudden Julio Jones and Ridley are going to come to town and they're not going to be scared of that? If John Brown and Crabtree scare you, Julio Jones and Ridley have to terrify you. This is a big part of why the Pittsburgh Steelers have gone from being a top echelon team against tight ends to the very worst in the NFL this year. Look at what's happened to them the last 3 weeks. Now, I will forgive them for Travis Kelce because he's a different kind of a beast. But in the last 2 weeks, they've given up 19 catches and 205 yards to opposing tight ends. And most of you probably don't even know much about the Baltimore tight ends, and yet they gave up 10 catches and 99 yards. They are forced to sit into this soft zone. All that the tight end needs to do is run 7 yards, turn around, and sit in this wide open spot, and a good quarterback like Matt Ryan will just toss it down to him. It's just an easy way. And what kind of point totals do you need out of Austin Hooper this weekend? Like 6 catches for 40 yards, and you're just fine.
Yeah. I actually recommended Hooper on our tight end video. I like him. One thing that I love when you start talking scheme, right, and coverage and what's going on, the Steelers have a tendency to play some press coverage. They're going to, with the 2 receivers, and like we talked about in the previous video, 3 receivers, you got Sanu, you got Ridley, you got Julio Jones. You have to look at the scheme in this game and think, one, there's going to be, from a game flow standpoint, a ton of points going to be scored. Number 2, which weapon are you going to choose to take away? Okay, it's very easy to play cover 2 or man under, roll a safety over the top of Julio so it doesn't beat you deep. Now you're opening up for the slot. Okay, we can bracket him with a strong safety linebacker play. Okay, we've got the receivers taken care of. What about the tight end in the middle of the field? And a team that's already shown to give up a ton of points to tight ends, and then you're looking at, like you said, bringing in 3 bona fide wide receivers who can stretch the field, who can move the chains. Coverage is going to be a big deal. The guy that I think gets lost in this is Hooper. I absolutely love Austin Hooper this week.
Good. I like to hear it because I know you and I like to approach these things a little bit more schematically than other people do. And I thought, again, go back to Sunday Night Football, and I love, like, to me, this is the thing that gets me super excited when the announcers do a really good job of explaining to your football masses why it is that the tight ends keep getting open and why it is that Pittsburgh isn't capable of doing what they used to. Like, they just don't have the guys defensively. Like you said, who are you going to take away? What's your game plan? Take away Julio or Austin Hooper? You got a game plan for Julio. He's a million times the player. Hooper should be in an easy spot to get catches.
Right. And so just looking at, one of the nerd stats that I like to look at is coverage, man coverage versus zone coverage teams. And Pittsburgh at 70.1% of the time plays zone coverage. Okay, what type of zone coverage do they run? Right. So when you're looking at this game, like I mentioned, if you're going to play man under, which is a very popular scheme in the NFL, cover 2 look, 2 high safeties, 1 safety over the top so you don't get beat deep, corner plays the flats. You can roll that against Julio. Okay, now you've got the slot to take care of. You roll your strong safety on the other side. He plays on the hash. You're taking away a Calvin Ridley. Okay, Sanu's not a stretch the field type of guy, but that opens the seam up and the intermediate box area up for the tight end to move the chains. And that's I just think Hooper has a really good week this week.
Right, and he's super cheap. You don't need a lot from him. You don't need him to go ham like you do the other guys. Just give me a couple of catches, and you can pay off your salary while opening up cap space for other guys. And you cut out for a second. I don't know if that was Google or YouTube or whatever, but you said that it was like 71% of the time they're in zone, 71 and some change.
71% of the time.
I bet you that number is going up the last couple of weeks if they've come to the realization that they just can't cover people man-to-man.
Right. The funny thing is, the stat that I read on this was that when they play cover 1, they're actually the best defense in the league playing cover 1 this year. They just don't play cover 1. 70% of the time they're in cover 2 or cover 3. So big deal there.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, I think we've talked a lot. You guys got anything to add in?
Nope, I'd say that goes back to the coach right there if they're going away from their strengths on defense for sure.
I think it's knowing your strengths too. Like they may play cover 1 against some weaker receiving cores or in certain situations where they feel like they can get after the passer. And that, to me, from a coaching standpoint, if I'm looking at you're playing cover 1 on 3rd down so you can bring a blitz, thank you for making it more obvious, and thank you for giving me the tight end matchup again. And there pops up Austin Hooper.
Yep, I think you could see Hooper with a career high in catches. Like, he's not going to have a huge yardage total. Like, his efficiency isn't going to be like monster, like 20-yard pickups left and right. But you could see him, like the Baltimore tight ends last week, 10 for 99. Like, you could see Hooper easily do like a 8 for 60 type of game, and maybe even gets in the end zone.
I was trying to say something, but I didn't even realize I had my microphone on mute. So what I was going to say was, for me, this breaks down pretty easily in the sense that obviously we've talked about this game ad nauseum, and he's 3K and is going to see a lot of snaps. And you guys have already broken down, Pittsburgh's defense, etc. So all formats, he makes a ton of sense, whether you want to use him as your tight end or whether you want to double up on tight ends.
And the beauty of it is you get the cap space, but like even if this pick fails, which it could, I mean, obviously it could fail, but even if it fails, like you can still be in the running. And that's what I like about cheap tight ends. Those are very, very low risk. All right. I think that covers it. That's what we got. So I don't really have anything else except thank you guys and stay classy.
Yeah, definitely. So, hey, thank you guys for coming and doing this video on our channel, letting our people check it out. We really appreciate you guys helping out. Love working with you guys. Definitely looking forward to next week and breaking down that week 6 video. And hey, go take advantage of our special offer, dfscheatsheet.com. Go check out these guys at the DFS 5-pack. And hey, that's all I got. All right, guys.
Hey, Steph, one quick thing. We've got some questions for these guys, if they don't mind sticking around, answering a couple of questions from people who are watching us live. Okay. They like your guys' input on Minnesota stack, and then they would like to also get input on stacking the Steelers-Falcons game over the Saints and Redskins.
So first off, I'd like to touch on the first part. I have not a ton of interest in stacking the Minnesota-Philly game at all. We like Thielen, and I think obviously you can go there, and I don't think Cousins will have a bad day. I just struggle to see that game really being too offensive-minded. And then as far as the second question goes, I do like the New Orleans-Washington game, but because that's the Monday night game and not on this slate, it's hard for us, at least me, to answer that question because I haven't looked at it enough. That being said, it's hard to imagine that game is a better look than Pittsburgh-Atlanta.
I have literally not looked at the Saints and Redskins at all because DraftKings does not include the Monday Night Football on the main slate. Like we've been breaking down the Thursday Showdown contest. We've gone into the main slate. I'll have to get into Monday night a little bit closer to the time when it comes. So I don't really have much of an opinion on that. With Mark Ingram coming back this week, like I'm a little hesitant to look at anybody on the Saints, right off the just kind of thinking about it because I'm curious to see how they play, what their usage for all the certain guys is going to be. As far as stacking Minnesota, I'm not really interested in stacking Minnesota, but I was feeling way before Steph even brought him up, and I love that you guys are on the same page with him. I think Thielen is a great GPP play this week, and I'm of the notion that if you just believe that strongly in Thielen, I wouldn't be surprised if he outscores Julio, Antonio Brown, Juju, or all of them this week.
He definitely could. I mean, that's there. It's real.
Yeah, the two things I liked was I love that you love Thielen as well, and I love that you love Austin Hooper as much as I do. So I like getting the confirmation.
I gave our members Hooper. I think we did Monday. We did the defense and tight end video, and Hooper was the guy that I mentioned. There's really for tournaments. There's like 4 guys that are all kind of stacked together there that you can just mix and match, right? And Hooper's one of them. I'm probably one of the guys that was so irritated and so pissed off when FanDuel took the Monday night game off the main slate because one of my favorite things to do was take a game like this, which is the New Orleans and Washington game that's on Monday night and have 1 or 2 players in that last game Monday night to really move me up the board because I knew that nobody would pay attention. And then you take a week like this. So if you're playing the slate on FanDuel, I don't know what it is on DraftKings. It's the Thursday through Monday slate. I don't have a problem with getting a couple of players, at least one player exposure in this. I think that Mark Ingram probably on that particular slate of the guys that are available to pick for the Monday night game would probably be one of the more popular plays. I think we've all talked about in the last 4 weeks, we've all talked about with Kamara and Drew Brees really enjoy this now, why Mark Ingram's not there because their offense will probably change a little bit. I think Drew Brees is maybe a guy that I would load into a few of those Thursday through Monday slates and just look for him to continue what he's doing and getting him at a reduced price, and then hope he has a bigger day than Roethlisberger or Matt Ryan. But as a whole, I would not be looking to stack this game over the other game. The game to stack is absolutely Pittsburgh and Atlanta.
I actually really like the Kamara call, though. Like, if you're playing a slate that has that, like, personally, I know that there'd be hesitancy because Ingram's coming back. I don't think they're going to just rush Ingram back, and I don't think that Kamara's workload is going to be all that lessened like this week. He's awesome. He's their best player. He's one of the best players in the league. They need to give him the ball. It's not going to be as dramatic as we've seen, but I don't – if you're going to talk about a Kamara at like under 5% owned, then I have interest.
Right. The Mark Ingram thing, to me, the most plausible play out for Mark Ingram this week is like 12 carries, 2 touchdowns, and 23 yards. Because I think if they got down in the red zone, I think that's where you could really see him pound Mark Ingram. I believe exactly what you're saying is 20 to 20. I don't think he's going to have a huge load. They're going to ease him back into it and get him back into game shape.
Good point.
The last question we have, if you guys don't mind real quick, I think it's a pretty easy one. Doot TV123 would like to know if he should go dirt cheap and stack up Buffalo and if we think it would work. My 2 cents on that is I have no interest in playing anybody in Buffalo, not even Shady McCoy. I have absolutely zero interest in that. And I don't think, for me, it's a juice worth the squeeze type deal. That's just, I get what you're trying to do, but there's no reason to do it. There's plenty of guys who are at the equal price of some of these cheap plays in Buffalo that are in much better situations.
Buffalo is a bad offensive team, and I know that they just ramrodded Minnesota, but don't forget that was 2 Kirk Cousins fumbles down by the 10-yard line that got them going and got them up in that game. They got their confidence rolling. Like, Green Bay played well last week, but let's not pretend like Green Bay is Jacksonville, and they did shut out the Buffalo Bills. Like, that's where I brought this up already. My role in the industry is just to remind people sometimes that just keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. And no, I don't have any interest in Buffalo. I was telling everybody preseason, do not waste your pick on Shady McCoy. You got a 30-plus-year-old running back behind a bad offensive line for a team that's going to be trailing a lot. They're just not very good.
Buffalo is a team here that you would never like. It's like an approach that I would take, and I have zero interest in Buffalo. I mean, that's getting way too cute. There's a bunch of teams that aren't going to be used in, if you want to be different, that are in better spots than Buffalo. Like a ton of teams, pretty much any other team.
I'll give you the prime example, and it's a pick that I gave on your guys' channel in Matt Bridia at 6,200. Who would you rather have? Bridia, you got Aaron Jones at 6,100. So there's 2 guys right there that McCoy's 6,500. I would much rather play Bridia and Jones than I would play Shady McCoy.
Yeah, just for me, make a long story short, Titans are my #1 defense on the week. So that tells you how I feel about the Buffalo Bills offense for sure.
Exactly. So there you go.
Thanks for the questions, guys. Thanks for sticking around and doing that. We appreciate it.
Hey, that's all we got for you guys. We'll be back tonight with our running back video. And thank you guys for helping us out today, all right?
Yep. Thank you. No problem. Thanks for having us.